Why do we cut down trees and put lights on them? How did a tropical plant become a winter holiday icon? And what does a parasitic plant have to do with Christmas romance? We look at holiday plants and their heritage on this episode of Garden Time. Garden Time is brought to you by Capital Subaru in Salem, Oregon.
At Capital Subaru, we value your time, whether you're here for service or working with our amazing sales team. Everything is right here for your convenience. We offer a great selection of Subarus, an industry-leading service center that keeps you moving, and so much more.
And right now, during the Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru will donate $250 for every new Subaru vehicle sold or leased from November 17th through January 3rd. Feel great about your new Subaru and be a part of something special this holiday season.
It's always your time at Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.
Welcome to the Garden Time Podcast. We're based in the Pacific Northwest of the United States in a Zone 7 region. This deals with plants that can survive at approximately 0 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. I'm producer Jeff Gustin with your hosts Judy Alaruzo and Ryan Seeley. Welcome to Garden Time, and thank you again to Capital Subaru in Salem for sponsoring the podcast and video. Today, we are in the holiday season, and today we're going to talk about heritage. Why do we cut down trees and drag them in our house? Why do we put tropical plants like poinsettias in our house during the holidays? We're going to try to answer some of those questions and get in a little bit of the history. So there's a lot we need to cover. So we each have notes here to talk about. So if you see us looking down, it's because there is a ton to cover. So Ryan, you were stuck.
I didn't quite memorize it.
No.
I think we'll start out with kind of the biggie, the Christmas tree. That's the quintessential look for Christmas. And long before, the advent of Christmas, plants and trees that remained green year round, had a kind of a special place in the meaning for people in the winter, just as they do to decorate their homes today for special seasons. They're bringing in pines and firs and trees into their house. The ancient people, hung evergreen boughs over their doors and windows. And in many countries, there was believed that the evergreens would keep away the witches, the ghosts, and the evil spirits. Going back to like the ancient Egyptian times, they worshipped a god called Ra. And this god was, wore a sundress, and at the solstice, he would recover from his illness and would have these evergreen palm trees in his house. Then the early Romans, marked the solstice with a feast in the honor of Saturn and the god of agriculture. And so the Romans knew that the solstice meant that soon the farmers and the orchards would be green and fruitful, and to mark the occasion, they decorated their homes and temples with evergreen boughs. And then in Northern Europe, the Druids and the priests of the ancient Celts would decorate their temples with evergreen boughs as a symbol of everlasting life. Just interesting.
So all these, it's amazing because all these different cultures, darkest days of winter, we're looking for life.
Right. And they're bringing, and these evergreens were something that still had something that they could bring in worship. So, now we go into Germany is credited with, looking at the starting of what the Christmas tradition is now back in the 16th century, when devout Christians brought in decorated trees into their homes. Some built Christmas pyramids out of wood and decorated them with evergreen candles, because wood was scarce. And it was widely held belief that Martin Luther, the 16th century Protestant reformer, first added lighted candles to his tree. He was out walking the streets amidst the winter evening, composing a sermon, and he was in awe of the brilliance of the sparkling twinkles in the sky and the stars. And so he wanted to add that to his evergreen to give him from that. So then, fast forward to, the early 19th century, the custom became popular amongst the nobility, and it spread throughout the royal courts, to start these traditions as far away as Russia. And decorating the churches and homes with evergreen was kind of long established. So the customs of decorating an entire small tree was unknown until Britain, a couple centuries ago. And so I think I remember the Queen came from Germany.
So she brought it?
And she brought some of those traditions, and then they kind of embellished?
Yeah, and then just kind of keep adding to it. And the first decorated tree, Christmas tree, can be traced back to 1510.
Whoa.
Back in Latvia. And evergreen trees have been used for thousands of years to celebrate winter festivities up until then. So now we fast forward, now we're looking, we're here in Oregon, and Oregon just happens to be one of the top producing Christmas tree producers in the United States. Next are North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are all big tree producers. And Oregon grows more Christmas trees than any other state. It's 31% of the Christmas trees are coming out of Oregon.
And we were
that's
talking
pretty
about
big,
it
yeah.
before Thanksgiving. We see trucks that are full of trees that are being shipped, so they have to be cut now,
right?
So that they can go.
And they're being shipped all over the world.
All over the world.
So they're
Japan, South
and
America, Central
they're going
America.
up and down into Mexico and Hawaii and places
amazing,
places
isn't it?
like that. And over 4.6 million Christmas trees are cut and harvested out of Oregon every year.
Yeah,
So
really,
it's
when you
wonderful.
visit Oregon, you can see the Christmas tree fields, and it's really fun to go watch them because you see them, the different ages of them, the little baby ones, and then the ones that are going to be cut for that Christmas.
Yeah, and a majority of them are grown here on the western side of the state because it's the good climates here in the Willamette Valley. We typically grow Douglas fir, noble fir, Fraser firs, and some Nordman.
Yeah. Now we're not passing judgment on everlasting trees because they, some families
Right.
prefer. We're just talking about the heritage, and those can last for a long time. People say, you buy one, you don't have to cut down a tree, but when you get rid of it, eventually it's going to add more waste to the waste stream. But if you do cut down a new tree, or you get one in a lot that's cut, what are some of the things?
There are some care that you want to take there. If you've done a live tree in the past, it can dry out. So the main tricks with the Christmas tree is once you get it, either if you've pre-cut it or bought it on the lot, once you get home, put a fresh cut, like a little ½ inch or so off the bottom. What that does is opens up the pores in there, and so it allows the tree to start sucking up water. And so once that tree dries out, if it ever dries out, that seals up again and will not reabsorb water. So once you let it dry out, don't.
So make sure
make
that you
sure.
Make sure you don't let it dry
and
out.
those first couple of days, it's going to be pulling a lot
So
of
many
water.
gallons.
A lot.
Lots
Right.
of
So you need to be
gallons. Yes.
checking it daily. Make sure you have a good
Right.
reservoir. There's lots of tricks on as far as add an Alka-Seltzer or some 7-Up or something to the water. I've never done that. Never had an issue. I just use plain water.
Plain
In fact,
water.
the experts say the very first time you put it in, you should do it with warm water. So if it does seal up, the warm water will help get rid of that sap.
Keeps
and
it
so
open.
it keeps it open. And I was reading the experts saying that a lot of times if you add stuff like soda, or pop, whatever we would call
Or
it,
bleach, I think.
bleach or something like that,
Aspirin.
sometimes it'll promote a growth. And so you get a bacterial growth, which isn't good for it. So just plain water is sometimes the best. But once again, that fresh cut.
Right.
And he should know, because if you live in the Lake Oswego area of Oregon, you should go down because you're the scoutmaster of the troop.
That's right, down at the George Rogers Park in Lake Oswego.
Come and support the kids.
Support the scouts, and we do a big tree lot down there. So we'll have trees and wreaths, and we've been doing that for over 75 years down in Lake Oswego. So it's a great tradition. Speaking of traditions, to come down and get a tree.
Excellent, excellent. So Judy, what do you have to talk about?
Well, since we're on the subject of greens, we're going to talk about wreaths. And wreaths are also Christmas greens, and this is a beautiful wreath. I love it because it has the noble fir on it, which are those beautiful points on it. It has pine cones. It even has some juniper berries on there, and yes, juniper berries. And I just think that they're lovely on your front door. It's such a welcoming thing, and the symbolism is really there. It's a symbolism, again, like we had from our ancient mankind, about the hope of the future, of the spring coming, and also the circle of infinity, and that goes to Christianity. So really, it's bringing a lot of different of those ideas together on that beautiful wreath that is more, the history is more than just beauty.
Yes.
And you can get them in various styles and colors, and in fact there are a lot of local independent garden centers, maybe even in your area, where you can go and make these.
Yes,
Is
that's
that-
a lot
and
of
they
fun
have
too.
classes, or they will have the materials. And we're here at Al's Garden and Home, and you have a lot of
Cut
wreaths here,
greens,
but
okay,
you have the
yeah.
cut greens, so people can actually come and get their own materials to build their own wreaths.
Yeah,
or
sure.
spreads.
And there are some products out there that if you are worried about them drying out, that you can kind of seal them. You know,
Right.
There's something called wilt stop or wilt proof. It's an anti-transparent that prevents the moisture evaporating out of the leaves. Just kind of puts a little sheen on there. So there are some of those that you can use on some of your cut greens if you're worried about them drying.
Right. You could even do your Christmas tree before you decorate it. And it's pine sap, so it's not any bad chemical. It doesn't smell bad. It
Right.
actually smells more like evergreen. So and it dries clear. It doesn't dry tacky. So your tree, if you forget to water it, it'll stay much more fresh.
And the key is once again that transpiration. You don't want those things drying out because
Right.
unlike Martin Luther, we do not recommend that you use an open flame near your, unless it's a family tradition and you have your own rules. But these things can dry out very fast. Even if they still look green, they can be very flammable. So if you use a wilt stop from Bonide or any of the other products out there, you want to make sure you use it correctly and continually check for that needle drop. So that'll be your big key as to whether it's safe to have inside or not. So yeah, we always give a fresh cut to our tree and make sure our wreaths are fresh from the Boy Scouts.
That's
and
right.
like us, we go. So
Thank you,
yeah.
Jeff.
What do we have next?
Oh, mistletoe.
Yes.
So mistletoe, I mean, if you're out and about, if you're hiking around, you'll see it up in the top of tree crowns. And you can kind of see it, it just kind of looks funny up there. It doesn't look like leaves, it doesn't look like stems, but that's mistletoe up there.
Is that a parasite? I mean,
It does feed off of the plant.
Okay.
I think that it takes a long time to kill that tree, but that's where it usually grows. And so does mistletoe have history? Man, it's like I have a whole page on just mistletoe, but it went back to like the Druids in ancient times, and they would use it for some of their fertility rites, and they have the white berries on it, and so there's all that kind of information about it. And then it went into it seems like every culture had something to talk about mistletoe. So it is found all over the world. And so Romans had it, and they associate many different aspects, peace, love, understanding, and hung it over doorways. And so that's what we do, right? For kisses, but that comes later.
but they used it to protect the household.
For protect
Right.
it,
Yeah.
So it's kind of gotten very changed in later years. And then in the Christian era, they used it to, again, protect against bad spirits, evil spirits, witches, and demons. And so that was also hung so that you prevented those bad spirits coming in the house. But then, some of the Middle Ages, it kind of changed and it became part of the Christmas celebration, maybe because the winter winds brought it down and it's like, here's this interesting plant, let's use it for decorations. And so then the kissing starts. And so, many years ago, everyone was very proper and proprietary, and you never kissed anyone unless you were married to them, or it was your mom and dad, or maybe aunties and uncles. So if you needed to kiss someone, you could do it under that mistletoe. It was okay.
It goes back to that whole love thing,
Yeah.
from the Druids
Yes.
and the Romans. So I don't understand about the picking of the berries, because there was one tradition where every
Right.
time you kiss somebody, you pulled one of the white berries off, and I'm like, yeah, so you always look for one with lots of berries.
Get lots of kisses.
But I don't understand that, because it is a poisonous.
Oh yeah, I think I don't even
one.
want to touch the berries.
Yeah.
You make sure that the kids don't get them or animals get them, because they're very poisonous. So it's funny that a poisonous plant can be about love and kissing. So it's kind of funny.
Parasitic.
Yeah.
And parasitic, yeah.
yeah.
But it comes, every culture, the Norse culture has it about Odin's son, all of the gods and goddesses there. There's another story there. So I think that the main idea is have it in your house. I think that we can give hugs and kisses to people that you love, and just bring that joy of the season to your home.
After so many, the last couple of years of avoiding contact,
Yes.
this is one where
It's
you can
time.
actually, it encourages you to do that.
Definitely.
So, next.
So holly. So
Okay.
holly one, you got a couple down there, and Judy's got a branch here covered in the red berries. Holly is kind of the common name. It's all called English holly, or the botanical name is Ilex aquifolium. So Ilex is the botanical name for holly. It's a large kind of genus of plants where there's lots of different varieties of holly that you'll go find. So when you're in the garden center, you can find many, many varieties. So this one happens to be the green foliage with lots of red berries. This is the common English holly. And then right next to it, we have a wreath, beautiful wreath made out
variegated.
of variegated holly.
Yeah.
So the variegated, the green and white white leaf. But the holly and the red berries have also one of those have been around for a very long time, dating back to pagan cultures, going all the way back that far. And it was a kind of a signature plant in the early formal gardens prized by the Victorians and valued for its tolerance to produce for pollution in industrial areas, because it's a very durable plant. So they would plant these to kind of help with pollution. And then it's incredibly versatile. So sometimes superstition, magic, and myth surround holly's deep pagan roots, which I found was kind of interesting. The Romans would bring the evergreens into their home during the winter because they believed they would keep the ability to keep their leaves was magical, and it would assure them of a spring that was coming, because they would hold it on.
Well, it is a very thick leaf.
It is a very thick leaf, and it holds on there. It does not drop off very easily.
No.
The berries drop easier.
It's like a
but
waxy covering on
right,
it.
and it's kind of thorny. They're your crown of thorns, which would be coming from there. So, it's in Christianity, the holly was adopted as the symbol of Christ's crown of thorns.
Because the red berries represented the drops
The
of blood.
crimson berries, was a symbol of his blood, and the evergreen is a metaphor of life after death.
Excellent. So a question for you, because we talked about the wilt stop on Christmas trees and greens. There are some plants that don't always react well to these anti-transpirants, and I believe holly is one of those.
Holly is one of those. So I've had tried them out in the past, and sometimes it can almost do more damage to the holly. Will turn the foliage black, make the berries drop off. So, like Judy was saying, I think it's made out of more of like a pitchy kind of substance.
So that makes sense.
So stick with your evergreen trees, like your needled kind of things,
firs
with that, and stay away from your evergreen, broadleaf evergreen type of trees like the hollies.
Cool. So you know what? Let's take a break. Okay. And so we can read up on our notes for the next group of plants that we're going to talk about. So we're going to listen to a message from Capital Subaru in Salem. And when we return, we'll talk about Christmas cactus, we'll talk about poinsettias, and we'll talk about a few of the other traditions that you may enjoy in your home. We'll be right back.
Start your new Subaru story at Capital Subaru. We are like nothing else in Oregon. From the moment you step through these doors, you see it, you feel it. We do things differently here. Our people, our culture, our customer experience.
And right now, during the Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru will donate $250 for every new Subaru vehicle sold or leased from November 17th through January 3rd. Feel great about your new Subaru and be a part of something special this holiday season.
Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.
And welcome back to Garden Time. We are talking about Christmas heritage and how it relates to plants. So why plants we use in the house at this time of year. And next on the hit parade is the poinsettia, or poinsettia, depending on where you're from.
Right.
And so what is the deal with bringing a tropical plant into the coldest parts of the country this time of year?
Well, but don't they look festive?
They're
don't they look like a
fantastic.
party?
Yeah.
The colors, I mean, the original colors are a color of red. And the plants are native to Mexico, and they're blooming in Mexico at the time. So I think this Joel Poinsett, who in the 1820s was an ambassador to Mexico, and he saw it and got really excited about it. And he was a little kind of amateur botanist, and so he decided to bring some cuttings home, and so he started to bring them back to the United States. And then there's the Ecke family out of California that ran with it. And they're the ones really responsible in the 60s of making it a household tradition of a plant. And, you know, I think in the 60s they did not look like this. I think that the breeding is just incredible because the flowers, if you see the native plant, the flowers are very tiny. They're not very interesting. It's a big rangy plant, and so they've really made it into a beautiful plant that we can enjoy in our house or as gifts. And at Al's, they grow really gorgeous ones. It's so many, like 35,000.
Yeah, but 30 varieties or 20
30
varieties.
varieties.
Yeah, something
Well,
like
you know,
that, yeah.
there's 15 different shades of red.
Yes,
Because,
yes.
you know, there's different shades of red. And so, you know, there's from like the burgundy red to a true red to that one in the far side there, that little one is called tapestry with a variegated leaf. And then this new one that's called J'adore that actually has 3 different colors in that pot.
Yeah, so you just planted three different
different
types
plants.
of
3 different
plants.
plants, right.
And a lot of garden centers are doing that now. You mentioned the flowers, and I think this is what throws people.
Oh,
is that
the
what you're
brass.
looking
Oh,
at,
yes.
You're looking at a leaf that's changing colors. The
Exactly.
flowers are the little tiny yellow
Right.
Right in the-
centers.
right in the
Those are the
center.
flowers. Everything else is just the bracts,
Bracts.
or leaves,
Right.
as people may know them by. So for owls and for people that are growing them up here, they don't just grow like this. You don't just order them. You
Oh my
have
gosh.
to make allowances for light control. When does that all start?
Well, actually, the cuttings come in June. The hottest time of the year, we're starting these plants, and it's a long crop. That's 5 months, you know, because now it's November. And so they come as little baby plants, and so we have to trick them into coloring up for the holiday season, because our days up here in the north area, we're at the 45th parallel, we have long days, and they don't start to color until the days get short. So in the greenhouses, we have to put black cloth over the crop. So it's an intensive
And that's in
labor.
October, September,
Yes,
right?
in September.
Yeah.
And so to get them to be beautiful for our customers. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a science project every year.
Yep.
But they're easy plants. Everybody gets so panicky about how do I keep it. You know, I have mine until Valentine's. I always get a red one so that I have a red one for Valentine's. But it's a tropical plant, so not too cold of no drafts, not a cold area. Make sure that your house is temperate, not near the fireplace. It can't be by the fireplace or the heat register. A nice bright window. They need some light. It's a living plant, and with the soil moisture, not too wet, not too dry. Don't let it sit in water.
Yeah.
And then we figured out, I think, what's killing them the most is people go shopping. And so they stop at the garden center and they get their poinsettia at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it sits in the car all day. And it's cold in most places. It's cold in the car. So it doesn't do it any favors. And you take it home and it's dead the next day. So make it your poinsettia shopping the last stop of the day.
And you were talking about watering, and a lot of them come in those decorative foils or pots, and you want to take them out and water them and then replace them into the pot, because otherwise that foil just holds that water in there.
Yeah.
It becomes a pond. We were talking about heritage, and there's a story about poinsettias about a little girl wanted to make a gift to the Virgin Mary at the church, correct?
I
And-
love
yeah,
that story.
yeah.
I think it's such a sweet story, and it's a Mexican story because they grow just in the wild there. And so she wanted to bring something to adore the nativity, and so she was just she was talking and she was thinking about it. An angel came to her, and an angel said, "Well, just gather something and bring it to see the Virgin Mary and Jesus." And so she picked up some weeds, and one of the weeds was a poinsettia. And so she brought it, and the story goes on from there. And so that's why it's kind of linked to the Christmas tradition too. So I just think it's a sweet story.
It is, and so many of these stories are linked to religion and to the time of year, not just the change of seasons, but to that birth of Christ. So,
Next we have, so
Yeah.
we're talking about flowers, amaryllis. And so amaryllis are one of those. It's it's a large bulb. It's
pretty big.
it's about the size of your fist or bigger. Puts up a long flower spike, typically red. We're starting to see some other colors, but there's kind of some interesting lore I'll read you here. So, the Greek lore tells of a shy maiden named Amaryllis who fell in love with Altio, a shepherd endowed with the strength of Hercules and the beauty of Apollo. Her affections unrequited, and Amaryllis sought consult with the oracle of Delphi. And following the oracle's advice, Amaryllis wore a dress in maiden's white and waited outside Altio's door for 30 nights, piercing her lovelorn heart with a golden arrow each night. Altio fell in love with the maiden when he discovered her surrounded by the beauty Amaryllis's flowers on his doorstep.
So the blood from her love
Made the flower.
made the flowers.
Aw,
I don't know. There's got to be an easier way of doing it. I'm sorry.
So then you go back to the Victorian times when the amaryllis symbolized strength and determination, and then due to its tall height and its sturdy stalk, and then over the last several years, amaryllis have become increasingly popular. You start seeing a lot more of those, kind of due to their willingness to bloom indoors during those winter months.
Yeah.
And so now you find them in garden centers, and here at Al's we have little kits that come with a pot and soil and a bulb. They can plant it up and put it in your windowsill and watch it bloom. You even have them now where you just take the bulb. You don't even have to pot it up. It's dipped in wax to seal it. It's covered in a cute little either glitter or some decorative thing. You just sit it in your windowsill. It blooms. Most of them now you just kind of dispose of them when you're done, enjoy the blooms, and get a new one for next year.
It's kind of like the poinsettia. You take care of it, and it can survive. But at what cost? So,
Come back to a garden center.
We actually a couple of years ago we took our amaryllis out for the season and left it on our deck. And sure enough, in August it shot up a bloom stalk, and we had beautiful amaryllis bloom in the middle of summer. And of course, then you're supposed to cut it back and winter or cold treat it in your refrigerator, and then it'll supposedly bloom again. Didn't that?
Yeah, no,
because
that sounds like
it kind of lost all its energy just blooming for us in the summer. So.
And there's lots of information online if you do want to keep it over every year, because they're beautiful, and it's like sometimes it's a good challenge.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I noticed right in front of us, we have Christmas cactus. And we don't want to get into the whole thing about, no, that's not a Christmas cactus, that's a Thanksgiving cactus, and there's different varieties. Yes, we know that. So we're just talking about the fact that we have a cactus that can bloom during the holidays, which a lot of people are like going, really?
Yeah,
and the fact that it's... you can take it outside during the summer, and it loves it. It brings it inside during the winter, and it'll bloom, and it's wonderful. So, what about the Christmas cactus?
So, there is lots of information online. If you want to get it down to dates, I have to do it this many weeks before Christmas to get them a Christmas cactus. But I think what it is, when you put them outside and you bring it in, it's that temperature change and the light change that triggers them to start setting bud. So you could see all the flower buds on this. I mean, there's just hundreds on it.
And they bloom at the very tips of each stalk.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's fantastic how it does that.
And they're really easy care. It's another easy care house plant. You want to make sure, don't keep it as dry as a spiny cactus, because it's a more fleshy kind of cactus. And especially when it has buds, I think they would drop too fast when it's too dry. So make sure that it's kind of kept a little bit of moisture in the soil when they're starting to bud. And you'll have them bloom. They're wonderful. They'll get really big. I was talking to a lady the other day. She has her grandmother's Christmas cactus. It must be 90 years old.
Oh, wow.
The same plant. And so she was the designated heir of the Christmas cactus. So it's really one of those long-lived plants that you can enjoy and tell those stories every year.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, definitely.
And we've had ours bloom at different times, not just
And
at
sometimes
Christmas.
that happens,
So just depending on the circumstances.
Adapts with its light.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
And
and
the
the-
heat. And
it'll grow. And the other thing too is that we've had branches snap
Fall off,
off,
yeah.
and they easily reestablish if you just stick them in the soil.
Pretty easy. And this woman was telling me that she did take cuttings from her grandmother's plant because nobody else got the plant, and so everybody was very jealous. So she made cuttings and made plants for the rest of the family.
Yeah, and they'll just root out at those joints.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
excellent. Anything else as far as plants? It's because there are a lot of plants that have significance during the holidays, but don't really have. I mean, we're talking about shooting star hydrangea.
Oh, yeah.
So those are relatively new, and those can add to. They may not have a backstory, but they can add to that color.
Of course.
Right. We've talked about like the hellebores or the Lenten rose or the Christmas rose.
Yes.
Different things that will be blooming at different times, or camellias, the Yuletide camellia.
Right.
So you'll find a lot of plants out there that have those Christmas colors that are blooming that time of year, which are nice. But like you said, they don't have the history that dates back thousands of years.
Which these all do. I mean, that's just amazing, all the history. It's incredible.
And they're great gifts. When I worked at a local TV station, KPTV here in Portland, And for years, we would send wreaths as client gifts to our clients because they're such a welcome gift. I mean,
Right.
you can always find a place for a wreath. You can always find a place for a poinsettia or amaryllis or a Christmas cactus. So
Definitely.
think of it as a Christmas
Yeah,
gift as well.
I've spent many years shipping wreaths to family members throughout the United States that just don't have access to. You know, we get so spoiled here in the
we do.
Northwest because we grow so much of this, and we're surrounded by people down in. You know, my
Florida,
father-in-law was
yeah.
in Nevada.
Oh, sure.
Would love to get a
Oh.
wreath every year, and he'd hang it on with pride because everything is just so brown and desolate that
Right,
just
right.
doesn't have it. So it does make a really nice gift to that. So
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a certain smell to Christmas, and a lot of these plants will bring that smell inside. So we hope you enjoyed our little trip through history
History,
as
yep.
we talked about the heritage of these Christmas plants. And really, when you get them, enjoy them with family. That's the key. Having the plants signify the time of year, and the time of year is a celebration. So celebrate with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching the podcast if you watch, or listening if you listen. Thanks again to Capital Subaru and Salem for sponsoring us. And we just hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and happy gardening.
At Capital Subaru, we value your time, whether you're here for service or working with our amazing sales team. Everything is right here for your convenience. We offer a great selection of Subarus, an industry-leading service center that keeps you moving, and so much more.
And right now, during the Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru will donate $250 for every new Subaru vehicle sold or leased from November 17th through January 3rd. Feel great about your new Subaru and be a part of something special this holiday season.
It's always your time at Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.